All right, well, hello and welcome to our Growing Kitchen Herbs class. I apologize for the slight delay getting us started. We had a couple technical hiccups, but they're all resolved now, and hopefully we'll have a nice, smooth, and fun class. This class today is hosted by the Land Connection and Common Ground Food Co-op together. My name is Kelly Lay, and I'm the local foods program manager at the Land Connection. And I'm excited to be here today with Kelly Allsup, who will be teaching us all about an amazing array of herbs that we can grow right here in Central Illinois. First, I have a few things to share before passing this class over to Kelly. This class was made possible by our wonderful partners at Common Ground Food Cooperative and with additional funding from the Illinois Specialty Crop Block Grant Program through the Illinois Department of Agriculture. And speaking of grant funding, we do have a poll to kick off today. I'm going to. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a minute longer with that poll. But while you're filling that out, I just wanted to start us off. I wanted to share a little bit about the Land Connection for those of you who might be less familiar with our work. If you've shopped at the Champaign Farmers Market or Champaign-Urbana Winter Farmers Market, in town, we're the brains behind those markets. So our work does expand out a lot further than just that. We're working to build a more just and equitable food system from soil to supper plate. We provide farmers and food entrepreneurs training, resources, and networks to grow their businesses, and we work to ensure eaters like you and me have convenient, affordable access to fresh, locally grown, raised, and produced foods. We also get to enjoy hosting fun family community events like this. So you can find out more about us on our website, thelandconnection.org. And then I wanted to give every one of you, no matter your familiarity with Zoom, and I know at this point, a lot of us have spent a lot more time on Zoom than we necessarily would like to. Just a quick reminder where your mute button is and how to find the chat box. If you're joining from a computer, you'll see something similar to this. If you're joining from a phone, you will have some different options available to you. You can chat us if you need help with that. And then I want to share that this cooking class is 2 events in one. While you're watching Kelly teach you about growing herbs, we'll be recording Kelly to produce today's class into a shorter version that you can access for free at any time on our website and YouTube channel. There's a lot of equipment set up in this classroom today, and it's given us a little bit of hiccups, but we think we're good to go on that. But because of that, we do need all participants to stay on mute until designated question times. You're welcome to type questions into the chat, and then we will get to those. But we ask that you please not unmute until we indicate it's time to ask questions. We will have someone monitoring the chat, answering questions, and saving those that need to go to Kelly. We also ask in advance for your grace if we have any blips or redo moments during the class. We promise it's for a good cause. Oop. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Kelly Allsup. Kelly is a horticulturist who has been educating the public for the past 15 years. Based in Central Illinois, Kelly has experience teaching her knowledge of growing to everyone from children to master gardeners. She is well-versed in trees, food crops, greenhouse production, sustainable landscaping, and integrated pest management. Kelly believes all people who share her enthusiasm for the natural world can be successful at growing plants. We are excited to have Kelly here to teach us about growing herbs.
Kelly, you're muted again.
Give us just 1 second. We're trying to figure out what's happening with this mic.
Kelly.
No, it's on.
Change it out. How about that?
Kelly Allsup. Kelly Allsup.
We can hear you. Yay!
Kelly Allsup. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Land Connection and Common Grounds, for letting me talk about growing kitchen herbs. Usually when I talk about growing herbs as a horticulturist, we'll say something like, they're great for pollinators, because herbs usually produce these really tiny flowers that these little small bees and small flies just really love to feast on. Or we might say, oh, they're so easy to grow. You can grow them. They're drought tolerant. But, there's something that's great to add to the landscape when you don't want to do much to it. So, one of those no-brainer type of plants. But what I really wanted to talk today about is, how do we intensively grow these plants and harvest and use them? Most of the time when we have these dreams of growing herbs, we put an herb in the ground and then we just don't think about it again, and we don't truly harvest and think about the growing process. So today I am going to go into more of that growing process. You have some of these in the kit. I thought was an excellent array of herbs. You have some that maybe grandma grew, maybe great grandma grew those. And then, there's some that, where our generation is going to have to grow, and we're going to have to grow them in containers because we don't have what great grandma had. I know I don't. I remember growing up as a kid, and my grandparents had acres of vegetables. I definitely do not have that, but it doesn't mean that I am not wanting for those fresh herbs or those fresh vegetables. So, what are herbs? I love it when we talk about herb preferences. Some like, moist, some like dry, check your soil. Herbs really want well-drained soil. In a container, that's easily achieved, because you can go out and get a nice soilless mix. And it's fluffy and it allows water to percolate down through it. The roots of the plants just love it. They just mine through the soil. Great. But then sometimes the soil in the ground is not very well drained. If you want to do a test on your soil, you can dig a hole, and then you can dump about 2 gallons of water into that hole. So dig it about 4 to 6 inches deep, maybe a little more, maybe 8 inches, excuse me. And then you're going to dump that 2 gallons in that hole, and you're going to allow it to percolate. And then you're going to come out the next morning and dump more water into it. And you're going to watch it percolate out. And if it hasn't percolated out within 2 to 4 hours, then you do not have well-drained soil. So that could be, yeah, it's a little bit of a work, but it could tell you well-drained. The plants that you grow can tell you if you have well-drained soil. You could look up the identification of some of those plants in your landscape and see if they are intolerant to wet feet, because wet landscape, compacted soil can be the worst thing for herbs. Check your watering. I think as a horticulturist, I say what my real expertise is: watering. And everybody's like, watering is an art. Yes, it is an art. As a horticulturist, one of my least favorite things to be asked is, how often do you water this plant? And my question all the time is when it needs water, because there's no one in test all for water. One of the things that really irritates me too is when people water without checking the watering first. I water greenhouse, sit down, I'm looking at the pots, I'm picking the pots up, I'm looking at the roots, I'm looking at the bottom, I'm sticking my hands in there, and I'm checking for soil moisture. And I don't want them to dry out. I don't want to keep my roots wet, 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 but I don't want them to dry out because I want continual harvest and the most optimum growing conditions possible. One of the things too about fertilizer, of the trade is that minimally just in the trade, we say we don't use fertilizer on herbs because it may affect the taste, or it may affect the harvest in some way. So I would use fertilizer from a grower's perspective, meaning if I potted up something and in a couple of weeks it's struggling a little bit, I might give it a little bit of a fertilizer to get it going, and then I'd back off. I'm not, unless it's telling me it's got, some deficiencies of leaf coloring or not flowering properly. I don't, not really going to fertilize it a lot. But, again, and then when you're going back to the watering, if you seeds, you water seeds daily. People don't do this. I don't understand why. Let me tell you, water seeds daily until they germinate. Then you can back off for the watering a little bit. Every day you're going to water seeds. And another thing, you have to water. After I water my seeds, I go back and I go, did that water percolate down enough? Um, that's why I say I have a PhD in water, because I'm checking before and after. And I'm not letting that plant just suffer in drought, because then I'm not really growing it for what we're growing it for today. So I did want to give you some pot sizes. I think that this can be confusing. I usually like the bigger pot, the better, but some of these would prefer smaller. And each one of them, I'll tell you, you can grow basil in anything. I can grow basil in a straw bale, and I can grow basil in a 4-inch pot. So some of these are really easy. And I've been doing a lot of growing in these bags, these fabric bags that are all over the internet, that are just your pop-up type of raised beds. And so I just wanted to show you that this is really how I, as a apartment dweller, have been growing my vegetables for the past several years. So try them out if you get an opportunity to see them. Definitely, they're fun to grow, and herbs would be perfect. So let's go into this. Is an old-fashioned one. This is rosemary. So if you've grown rosemary before, you might have grown it in a pot, you might have pinched it, you might have seen it as a you might have seen it. Well, I'm just going to you might have seen it as a Christmas tree topiary during the holidays. And then you've definitely had it with your chicken or your potatoes, this beautiful aromatic rosemary. Well, we're giving you a 4-inch pot of rosemary. Now, rosemary can be very, very difficult from seed, which is why you usually find it in a pot. One of the things that I do is, when it comes to rosemary, is I'm not going to pot it up too much. Meaning, I'm not going to put this in a 5-gallon pot. I'm going to put this in a 6 or an 8-inch pot. And I'm probably not going to put it in the ground, just because it doesn't like it's got very shallow roots. And I feel like in the landscape, it can too easily dry out. And then it can easily dry out when you bring it inside your house too, because of the way Illinois winters are. So they can't handle drought, but the very first thing they can't handle wet feet. And that tends to be how most people kill them is they overwater them. They'll go and they'll be like, oh, it's a little bit crispy. So this one I would let dry down between waterings, meaning you're not going to let it just start flagging, meaning it peters over because it's so dry, but you're going to let it dry between waterings, but you're not going to like let it just go bone dry. You're going to let it give some consistent moisture. So another thing is when we bring it inside, because this is a tender perennial, it's not going to last very long. It's something I'm going to put in in my pot, and then I'm going to want to bring it inside because I'm going to want to get, keep sizing it up year after year. Meaning, this year you have a 4 to 8 inch pot. Next year you might even be able to pot it up to a 10 inch, and while all the while harvesting. And so when I bring it in, excuse me, when I bring it inside, the Illinois homes are the absolute worst conditions for rosemary. Rosemary wants cool, bright lights, consistent moisture. We have no lights, and believe me, it is not cool, it is hot and dry. And go ahead and put your rosemary next to a heat register, and that is the fastest way to kill your rosemary. I've done it several times. Oh, I pretend I don't kill plants. I've never killed a rosemary before, but that tends to be the best with rosemary. As far as tip cuttings, I would never go more than 20% of the plant, meaning right now, I would probably, even at planting, pinch this tip off so that it starts branching. Oh, yeah. Okay, pinch the tip off. They're hard, and it's very aromatic. Now I'm not going to be able to smell the other herbs, but I would pinch that tip off. I'd use that right away. I'd even pinch side branches to use right away, but about 20% of the plant. And as it grows, you can start pinching a little bit, which is fine because with rosemary, you're not going to use like humongous amounts of it to where you're going to need large harvest. And then, the woody stems, tend to be not as good of a taste. And so, clip it while it's vegetative. Okay, we're going to move on to sage, another normal, what your grandmother grew. But what I like about sage is it's a perennial, and you can plant this in your ground. And it is an easy perennial to grow, and it will come back each year. And if you take care of it and put it in the right spot, you can actually harvest a tremendous amount of sage. Again, it's a lot like rosemary in the fact that you don't need a lot, but it will produce a lot. So you could become the premier Central Illinois sage grower with, your front yard or a little bit of your backyard or whatever. But again, that well-drained soil, you're going to hear me like a broken record, well-drained but consistently moist, well-drained but consistently moist. So I'm not going to let it just go dry, but I can't let it have wet feet. So it has to have well-drained soil. It can be a ground cover. You can have many cultivars of this, where there's purple and different colors, the greens, the chartreuses, and then chartreuse, excuse me, I love that word. That's like, I think my 4-year-old just took over my body with that word. And then you want to ensure good air circulation. If you've ever, even though if you're a foodie and you're on here and you've ever read an Elliot Coleman book, I can summarize the book for you. All about plant fending fending off plant issues by addressing plant health. And if I water my plant well, take care of my plant, manicure it, look at it, look at it every now and then I'm not going to have any growing issues. And he's so right. And that's why when we give these gardeners all these soil things, and then they're like, oh, that goes right over your head. Well, this is what will make it to where you don't have to. You can be organic completely, especially with herbs, because, and especially if you give them good growing conditions, you're going to be successful without having to fend off certain diseases. So, one of the things that you can do with sage, because it could get some diseases or maybe slugs, or is make sure it has good air circulation. So each year, when in the late spring, you might cut back some of those old woody parts and make sure it has good air circulation. Or when you're pruning, you make sure you cut out some of those side branches so you create more air that goes through that planting. So you're not going to harvest usually for the first 75 days. Again, I would pinch this out. I feel like I'm going to embarrass myself again. Yeah, because it's a little woody. Pinch out, that would be your first harvest right there. Allow it to grow for a little bit. Then, after that 75 days, you can pinch back about 6 inches of the plant. But after that, it's a perennial. It's gonna come back next year, and you can have like 3 huge harvests per year where you're cutting back the 6-inch flush of new growth. So you can really harvest a tremendous amount of sage. And then, I know that there is another speaker that's going to come and talk about how to how to use it and dry it. And so I'm definitely fresh, but I like the idea of growing a lot and having it throughout the winter months. Mint. If you notice, mint and dill, I kind of skip over a little bit, but everybody don't grow mint. It spreads. It's aggressive.
Quick question. Do we need to protect sage over the winter?
No, it is a perennial. It will come back year after year. Now, if you have it in a pot, then you need to bring it in, because it probably will not withstand the temperatures of the pot getting the soil frozen. That's probably a 50-50 chance right there too, right? I mean, many times, like I've left chives in a pot and it comes back, or I've left perennial herbs in a pot and they've come back. It just depends if they don't get too cold. So hopefully I answered that question. Going to mint, I actually, as a horticulturist, would like to promote using mint as a ground cover. I meant, why not? It's aggressive. That's the first quality of a good ground cover. It doesn't let any other weeds grow. Excellent. It produces flowers for insects. Oh, wonderful. Great. It's not, it's not going to, become, well, maybe it'll become a little bit invasive, but, if you have it, like surrounded by a house and a sidewalk and, another sidewalk, it's perfect. You have this mint, but this one's going to spread by underground rhizomes, which is why you'll hear all the time people put them in a pot and bury them in the ground, and then that'll keep those underground rhizomes from spreading. This one actually blooms in July, so you would cut this one back in the same way you would do the sage, the 3 times a year of the new flush. Harvest those 6-inch tips. Again, it's mint. It's very easy to grow, but if you provide it with some water during times of drought, and if it shows you, if it shows you a nutrient deficiency, then maybe you can address that and have that new flush be, leafy. I like that word, leafy. Lemongrass, I was super excited about this. I haven't grown it a lot, but I have grown it. I grew it the one time I grew it in a straw bale. I couldn't give it away, which was awfully sad, because I think it's just because people didn't understand how to use lemongrass. And so even if I harvested it and tried to give away the plants, people were not as interested. But my gosh, from an ornamentals perspective, this plant is stunning in the garden in the summer when everything else is petering out from drought. This is like heat and drought. Oh yeah, I'm happy. So for as far as a vegetable garden perspective, this should be in everybody's garden. I personally planted it in a straw bale and could plant it in a pot. It would have to be a much larger pot. You know, you're not going to plant this in a 6-inch pot. This stuff gets, 4 feet tall, and it spreads. It spreads that too. I actually put one plant, and it took over the entire straw bale. It wants water regularly. I almost did not think that putting it in the straw bale was going to be the best option because I thought it might dry it down too much, but the straw bale actually held a lot more water than you think. And if you saw the outer edge of the straw bale, you would think, hey, that straw bale is dry. But I am not that kind of waterer. I'm the kind of waterer that takes out my tool and digs into that straw bale, and there it's just saturated with water.
Question from Jay, is lemongrass the same as lemon balm? We were given a sheet about lemon balm.
No, lemon balm is actually more like mint. So this is a tropical kind of herb, and lemon balm is more like mint, meaning it's in the same family. It's aggressive like mint. Lemon balm does not taste nearly as good as lemongrass. That you can't even compare. Not that it's not a great thing to grow, because it's again easy, but there. And then there's lemon verbena that has a beautiful lemon taste too, that I think is better than lemon. Yeah. Well,
couple comments to the conversation. One person says, "Is she saying straw? What is that?" And then someone's like, "Southern accent for bale. What does it mean to plant in a straw bale?"
So what I do is because one of the things that with gardeners, especially like me, is I want to grow a lot, right? But I don't want to till up the ground. I don't want to weed a lot. I don't want to do this intensively. So I grow in a straw bale, right? Because I can't just dig up my landlord's yard. And I grow in temporary spots. So I'll pull out straw bales. Yes, I will just pull those straw bales you get from your local farm store. And I'll start fertilizing and watering them. And what it does is it starts promoting the bacteria and the microbes to start breaking down that straw bale. So then about 10 to 14 days after I start watering and fertilizing that straw bale, I can plant my seeds and I can plant my plants. So essentially, it's like me growing food in a compost bin. But, Kelly Lay, sorry, can connect with me because, like, for instance, when we were in extension together, we would have gardens where we didn't have the right soil conditions, or we didn't have the right sun, and so this was a way for us to address those issues. So yes, I've been straw baling garden for a while. I actually just put up a demonstration at Parkland Community College in their little garden. So yeah, I have a YouTube video on it too. And so yeah. Was there another question? I don't want to go into too much, but
Send more resources about
or it could be a class in the following year. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, there's not a lot of research. I'm not sure if, I'm not sure what it does as far as the produce. I feel like some produce. I produce a lot. I feel like some it reduces it just because of the temperature and the water change. But excuse me, that's me being a grower. So, how do you harvest lemongrass? Go back to harvesting lemongrass, please. So you can cut the tops off, but then when it's about a 1 inch thick, you're going to, this is called the tender core. Excuse me. I need to take another drink because that's not going to go away. Mm. Mm. And so you're going to go all the way to the base or even just a little bit below the soil, and you're going to just cut that plant. And you can cut the top off all at once, but you're only going to use that sort of 18-inch to that 12 to 18-inch piece right at the base to the tip. So it's going to be about a half of an inch thick. Then at the very end of the season, you can actually harvest and overwinter the clumps of this lemongrass. From a gardener's perspective, this is just super easy and cheap and to find. I'm not sure if I would want to take up space inside my house to overwinter these overwintering clumps. I might just, go out and buy a new plant each year. Okay. Yarrow. Oh, I love that you guys have yarrow. I did a lot of, I harvested flowers last year for a company. And this is one of the ones that I harvested, but I also harvested it as a cut flower. It's an amazing cut flower because it was our filler from June to September. I am so sorry, you guys. I'm in the middle of Illinois allergies. This is a perennial, so it's going to spread by rhizomes or self-seeding. And it's it's a fairly easy perennial to grow. Again, I'm going to provide well-drained soil and some consistent moisture. That way I keep growing those flowers. So you can actually harvest the leaves, the flowers, and the roots. They harvest the leaves and actually put them in salads. And then the flowers are usually either dried and used in that manner. And then you can also harvest the yarrow root at the end of the season. Or you're just going to leave it in the ground because it's just like a landscape perennial and come back each year. And then you're going to divide this one every 3 to 5 years. Why do horticulturists tell you to divide plants? Well, they tell you to divide plants because have you ever had a plant where it's a great plant, it's vigorous, each year it gets bigger and more vigorous, and all of a sudden it doesn't flower anymore, or something goes wrong with the plant? Well, it probably needed to be divided, and then it would do much better. And then, this is a gardener's favorite. Hey, what gardener does not want to um, have a plant that is so amazing, but then also be able to divide it every 5 years and reproduce it? So landscape, you guys, amazing plant. Okay, now we're to the ginger root. Now this was I found a lot of information on ginger root. Now, you know how I had grown ginger root in the past? I grew ginger root. I grew ginger root. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this at the same time. I grew ginger root at the plant biology greenhouse in the tropical. And each year we wanted to see how beautiful the flowers were. but they're actually talking about ginger root as a potential crop in Illinois. Let me take a break, like a 2-minute break or something. Hey, you guys, I'm going to take a little break just to get my coughing under control, and I'll be right back. Okay, hello, hello. Okay, let's try to get through this. Okay, ginger root. The reason, by the way, I just had a very herbal cough drop, so such a fitting thing to have in the middle of an herb presentation. So back to ginger root. The reason that ginger root is being considered this kind of high tunnel greenhouse type of crop in Illinois, because local farmers were growing in the growing season, but then what do we grow during the winter when we have these high tunnel or greenhouse spaces? Could ginger root be a profitable product? Well, probably because it's $12 to $20 a pound. Um, that's locally grown. I mean, at the grocery store, it's a little bit cheaper, but believe me, it's not coming from Illinois. It's coming from across seas. So these, you're really gonna need a much bigger container. You got one piece. So I would, if I were to do one piece, I might do it in a 14-inch container. But I actually usually put 3 pieces per 15-gallon containers. Now, ginger grows out, not really deep. So the pots don't have to necessarily be these huge deep pots. Um, so you can do those smaller pots with one piece. So preparing the rhizomes, you're going to have a 2-ounce piece. You guys notice that your rhizome was probably cut. And this is standard practice, what normally people do. And you just want 2 eyes, and they're just like little bumps. So I see 1, 2, 3. This one, and in fact, in some of these lateral lines, if I were to scrape it back, I could probably find another eye. So you don't really have to have that big of a piece. Then what you're going to do is you're going to cure it for 3 days. So when did you cut these? So they're cut on Friday. So right, yeah, you guys, they're done curing on Monday and they're ready to plant right away. You don't want to cure them too long. You don't want them to dry out. And then if you have a major operation, you're going to want to make sure you sterilize everything and you're not sharing disease. A lot of people pre-sprout rhizomes. Now, this would be much more beneficial if you have that high tunnel to pre-sprout these, get a jump on the season. You guys are going to pre-sprout in a way, but you're going to put them in the potting mix. And you're going to cover these with an inch of soil. Requires about 70 to 80 degrees range. So heat on the bottom or heat on the top. How do I get heat on the top? You just cover the top and that'll keep the heat in. Then you're going to keep them moist. It's going to be 4 to 6 weeks to moist. So you guys have this. You put it in a 12-inch pot. 4 to 6 weeks until you're actually going to see anything sprouting up. Does that mean you're going to walk away and not take care of it? Absolutely not. We're going to keep it moist and we're going to keep it warm. And we're going to want to pull it into the sun once we actually see leaves and it actually starts to sprout. So growing, it cannot withstand less than 55 degrees. I say that for every tropical plant. And then it wants consistent watering. Now, this one, which I thought was really cool, I learned more about ginger root from a colleague named Chris Enroth from University of Illinois, where he talked about the hilling. And so what they do is, even though they don't require really deep pots, they do require hilling at the base of the stem. So every 4 to 6 weeks, you're supposed to go and hill, another 6 inches. What did I put? Another 2 to 4 inches of soil on the base of that ginger plant. And that'll keep it continuously growing well under those dark conditions, and it doesn't like bleach out. So you're going to repeat that every 4 to 6 weeks. Now, unlike other herbs, this one does like a little bit more organic matter. So that every time you hill it, maybe you give it a liquid feed, or you do incorporate some fertilizer into the soil. You can also save this in the harvest this at the end of the season. You can save them, you can cure them, you can use them. You're not getting the ones with the woody. You're actually going to get what is called baby ginger. And so that one's going to be 4 to 6 months, because is our growing season 11 months? I wish Kelly would be a much happier person if it were, but it's not. So we're going to harvest this. You see in this picture is kind of baby ginger. It doesn't mean it's not delicious. It doesn't mean it's not great. It's just not going to have this woody kind of outer layer on it. And I'm sure that your teacher who's going to teach you how to use it is going to talk about how to use different, the baby ginger in this, and if there's any difference as far as the use is concerned.
Leon had a question. What does grow mean? Sorry, I spoke up.
I am so sorry. I mean, I think it's a horticulture terminology. Do you know when you grow potatoes, and you grow them and then all of a sudden what you'll do is you'll take some soil and you'll build it up around. And what you're doing is you're preventing the base of the tops of those potatoes from getting direct sunlight. And so it's just something that you continuously do. Like they do it with carrots, where they'll kind of blanch them out a little bit. So when we talk about ginger at the base of the plant, it's going to want to be hilled up. So at the base of the plant, you're going to add 2 inches of soil, 2 to 4 inches every 4 to 6 weeks. Do you get what I mean? So even because it's shallow, right? So let's say I have a 14-inch pot and it's shallow and I don't need a deep pot, right? So I could plant it in plant this in half that 14-inch pot and leave myself the ability to hill in the pot for the next growing season. But, if grow it in the ground, I'm going to do major hilling every 4 to 6 weeks. I hope I explained that well enough. If so, please.
He said, so just piling together more soil, pokes up.
Yes, around the base of the plant, which is usually not what you want to do, right? You usually don't want to drown the base of the plant with soil, but here we're telling you drown the base of the plant with soil. Okay.
Leon also had a question about down the line, talking about what to do differently for indoor or in containers, a lot of space.
Well, I mean, as long as you have bright sun, which is either that south facing window or west might be okay. You're just not going to produce as much as we are outside. But you can have little pots of all of these herbs and grow them in a bright, indirect sun, and that'll be the best. Now, I mean, like I said, you grow your mint in a pot. At the end of the season, it's going to be this little mint in a pot. I grow mint in the ground. At the end of the season, it's going to be a whale, the shape of a whale. So, I hope by me talking about maximizing growth in larger pots or outside, I hope that doesn't deter you from growing these in smaller pots inside, throughout winter months when you just need that freshness. I'm a big fan of growing tiny greens. I do that a lot. So do that with herbs too. Okay, let's go to borage. To talk about my grandma's plant. Let me tell you, I grew this for edible flowers. I thought it was the best tasting edible flower we grew. Tastes like honey. And it was prolific. I mean, I probably harvested 200 flowers every week throughout the entire growing season on this plant. It self-seeds, yay, which, can be yay or nay, depending on what kind of gardener you are. But hey, if you want the plant, it's going to self-seed. But if you know, there's no way you can harvest everything like I did. I had to, in the middle of the growing season, cut it back in half just to get it to push out new growth and new flowers. It has these beautiful, kind of great, fuzzy, um, edible leaves. They're supposed to taste like cucumber. Uh, tastes fuzzy to me. So I'm just not a big fan of things with fuzziness on them. I think if you like washed it down much more and maybe put it with other stuff, it would be interesting, but I thought the flowers were amazing. So you can remove those tips of the plants to harvest when they're young, because you don't want to harvest like a 14-inch leaf. I mean, you want to harvest a 3-inch leaf. Again, we go back to Elliot Coleman, who doesn't harvest anything that's over 4 inches. And if he does, he calls it a cooking green. You can't eat. So if you want to eat fresh stuff, I'll have people all the time. They'll be like, oh, I don't do Swiss chard. I don't do kale. I don't do arugula. And it's because it was larger than 3 inches. So if you have smaller leaves, they taste so much better. They're more tender. They have more flavor. So, a way to get new growth is to cut it back. But hey, you could also just grow it for the flowers and just, I mean, did I think that when we sold the edible flowers at the farmer's market, was it a big hit? No. And I think it's just because people don't know what to do. People don't know what to do with it. And we didn't really differentiate the difference between the taste either. We made it as kind of a decorative option, not an edible option. So that might have been our downfall. Questions?
Still sort of seeds now, even though she has plant seed in early year. And there's a couple of others.
This is the other thing about gardening that I hate is even though I told you you can plant it in early April, does not mean you can't plant it any other time of the year. It is not necessarily a cool season, even though it does like cooler temperatures, and some of the high temperatures we get might make it want to peter out a little bit, even though I've had, usually I just cut it back. But
Yeah, you can plant.
yeah, plant it now. I haven't planted mine yet. I'm going to plant. Hey, they're giving me some. I'm going to plant borage directly into a pot. I probably won't do it till the 1st of June. It's so prolific and it'll come back too. So it's a great one. Well-drained soil. Did you say well-drained soil? Consistent moisture, well-drained soil. Keep going.
Leon says, my understanding is that in general, you don't let herbs with these and yarrow an exception.
Well, it depends what you're harvesting the herbs for. For instance, if I'm going to harvest basil, I don't want basil flowers, I want basil leaves. But when it comes to borage, I actually want the flowers, and those are what most people want to grow borage for. It doesn't mean you can't not eat the leaves. Usually when the flowers are edible, the leaves, the whole part of the plant is edible. For instance, a radish flower is edible. The leaves are edible, the roots are edible, but you're growing it for the root. You're not growing it for the flower. So usually if a herb goes into flower, it won't stay vegetative. So you don't want it to flower. You want it to keep vegetative. But it depends what part of the plant you're using.
Alicia says, what plant?
Is it in the Solanaceae family? I feel like nightshade family, even though those are poisonous.
Floriginaceae.
Well, if you've never heard of it, I love it. I'm a picky plant person. And I always grow borage. I love it. I love it. I love it. There's nothing that is that beautiful, bright sky blue. And the flowers just gorgeous, easy plant. And talk about the bees. Everywhere. Oh, forget me nots. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know what family it was in. Forget me nots. Originaceae. We'll quiz you later on that. Okay, let's go to the next slide unless we have more. Chamomile. So there's two types of chamomile. You actually got the German chamomile. This is the German chamomile is the annual type, and then that Roman chamomile is hardy. It's this kind of, the difference is the habit. You know, the German chamomile grows up 2 feet, the other one stays low growing. They both have kind of this evergreen like foliage, and but the perennial one stays as a ground cover, and it blooms June through September. This would be one where you want to harvest the flowers, because that's what the teas and all the tinctures or what everybody's making is, they're making it from these beautiful open flowers. Now, you don't want to harvest when the flowers start to senesce. You want to harvest when they first come out. I think chamomile needs well-drained soil. We grew it in the greenhouse this year. It did very well as far as growing it from seed in a plant. I think you get it from chamomile. So we were very. Oh, okay. So you look at your chamomile and you can hardly see the seeds because they're so small. Do you know what you do with this? You just put it on the top. You don't cover them. And just keep them wet. You spritz them every single day, and you keep going until you start to see that little seedling. Then you can back off a little bit. So we did the chamomile too, and it was super. You know, we have a bunch of students do it, and we were so successful with it. But then we planted in the ground outside and as transplant, and then let it start to flower. But you guys can go directly into a pot and let it grow. I'd probably do a 12 to 14 inch pot for this. Next slide. Dill, I just want to tell you that dill, again, can be aggressive. But one of the things that I always promoted dill for is that is the larva plant of the black swallowtail. So if you plant dill for everyone. And if you get worms on it, caterpillars, don't kill them. It's like, I have worms on my dill. What do I do to kill them? Do you really need that much dill? Dill is a producer. What I mean by producer, prolific producer. You'll have more dill than you ever want. It reseeds. Self-seeding. It's like cilantro, meaning you plant it once, it'll come back every year. Great for me as far as I'm concerned. But some people don't like it because it will actually come up across the garden. But I love dill. I love using all parts of the plant personally. I love the leaves, the flowers, and the seeds. Depending on where it is, that's how I'll use it. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll just cut it back just to get that flush of leaves out so I can get those first flowers because I tend to like that to use that more. It likes well drained, full sun. You know, let it grow. No, don't let it grow. If you put it in a pot, you know, just put it in a bigger pot and consistently water it and then manage it when it flowers, depending on how you want to use the plant. Go ahead. There's that little black swallowtail caterpillar. If you poke them, let me tell you, poking caterpillars on a dill plant is fun pastime. He'll actually he'll actually send out a little stinky forked gland from his head that is just telling you not to eat them, and kids love to do that too, poke them. And so they can be really great. Okay, let's go to calendula, another really old-fashioned kind of grandma-ish plant called pot marigold, but nothing like marigold. Even though, you know, people say don't confuse it with marigold, but you know, marigold has edible flowers too. Um, and can be mixed with dishes just like this calendula. I think the calendula has a sweet taste also, personally for me. You can harvest the leaves too. But again, I harvested the flowers. They were great for me to harvest because they were large and they filled my little package really well and with those bright colors. So I seeded them indoors 6 to 8 weeks. You can, but I haven't. I start them outside every year and they reseed and they'll come back each year. You have your calendula right here. Now, what's unique about calendula is, you know, not usually, you know, usually seed requirements when it comes to seeds is they want to be planted 1 to 2 and 1 to 2 the depth of the seed. They usually need a high temperature and they usually need water. It's usually not light that helps with seed germination, but every now and then you'll find seed that requires light or you'll find seed that actually doesn't require light. And so that's just stuff you have to look up, right? So this one actually needs to be dark. So you have your pot, you put your calendula seeds on it. How do you make it dark? It's called newspaper. So put that newspaper on it, spritz that newspaper every day, keep it consistently wet. They'll stay dark. And then plus you can also cover them with vermiculite. That's another way to keep them dark, as long as you keep them down deep. And that'll make sure that you get good germination. I've not really had issue with germination on calendulas. I've germinated them before I knew this fact, and I've germinated them after I knew this fact, and have been very successful, which is commends these ladies for picking out excellent plants for you guys. Let's keep going. Catnip, I think this was the next one. Oh man, I got so excited when I found this one on the list. I was like, who teaches people to grow catnip? But I mean, imagine you're a catnip toy maker. Where do you get your catnip from? Somebody's growing catnip. Could it be you who's growing catnip? I mean, it's easy to grow. It's a perennial, has these kind of gray-green leaves. It's in the mint family because it has those square stems. It looks just like mint almost. I mean, you'd have to smell it to probably be able to differentiate it from mint. It blooms May through September, well-drained soil, full sun to part shade. You shear it, you pinch it. You can share this 3 times a year. So right before it flowers. Then again, depending on how you use it. If you want the flowers, you're going to wait until it flowers. If you just want to use the leaves, you um, um, share it halfway 3 times a year. A really great, cool plant. When it flowers, again, the pollinators absolutely love it. So if you did forget about the plant, it would go ahead and flower. Now, I'm really interested to see how she has you use this plant, because in my, looking like, I was like, well, first, like I had a like idea of how to harvest some of these, you know, catnip. I mean, do you think I've ever harvested catnip before? Never. I've grown it. Do you think I have an idea of how to harvest it? Yes, I have an idea of how to harvest it, but what I saw on the internet was people were just giving branches to their cats. And they were just like, and these cats were just crazy, but um, it was just kind of a cool way to um, easy produce, easy harvest, easy dry. I'm really interested to see what she does, how she tells you to use this plant further in your herb growing endeavors. Cool. Okay. So this plant is going to be featured in the bug spray and tea as the uses of this plant as a bug spray and tea, beyond making your fellow felines happy. But let me tell you, I'm a dog person, so I don't have cats. But when I with the this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, just to wrap up. One of the things that I thought was interesting with growing herbs was, my father lived in Texas and he has chickens. And he was like, could you research herbs to feed my chickens and help their health? And so we were just going crazy, and we had all these oddball herbs that we could feed these chickens. And it was just a super interesting way to use such a prolific plant and it, use the earth to help the chickens. So that was the most unique herb growing experience I've ever been asked to do. But I just want you guys wrapping it up, I want you guys to look beyond, I'm going to plant herbs for pollinators, or I'm going to plant herbs for the landscape plant because it's drought tolerant. I want you to look at herbs as producers, major producers, and you're a grower. You can't just plant it in the ground and walk away. You have to look and nurture your plant. And with that, I bow out. Okay.
All right, can we get we are on Zoom, so it's a little hard to do a round of applause, but if you guys want to do little emotes or say thank yous in the chat, we'll definitely share those along. We're very, like I said, very excited to have had Kelly present on growing herbs and providing so much fun facts for us. Now, I do want to thank all of you for spending your Saturday afternoon with us, learning the ins and outs of growing kitchen herbs. I've got one more poll that I'm going to share with you. Again, these polls just help us with making sure that we can fund maybe hopefully a straw bale class. And other fun topics like that. So your answers do really help us out. And while you're working to submit your answers, I did want to direct your attention to where you'll find past videos from our classes. We have some playlists on edible perennials and general gardening, and soon we will have a playlist on herbs. We convert all our classes into accessible videos to share through our Land Connection YouTube channel under our homegrown series playlist. So you can see a few of our homegrown playlists here: garden tips and tricks and edible perennials. Now, we've referenced a couple times throughout the class some classes that are coming up. If you're interested in learning more about how to use the herbs that we learned to grow today, we'll be launching our Kitchen Herb Skills class series this July with a set of 5 classes focused on how to use locally grown herbs to make fun projects like homemade lip balm, bug sprays, herb salts, relaxing tea mixes, all sorts of fun stuff. Registration is open today for the first class in this series, Preserving Herb Harvests. We want to say thank you to our friends at Common Ground for partnering with us to bring these classes to you. And Common Ground actually has an amazing list of classes that they offer as well. So I'm going to let Sarah take over for a minute and share about some upcoming Common Ground classes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us. It was so great to see so many people registering. I think we had more than 70 folks sign up. And thank you again to Kelly at Allsup for a super informative class. Yeah, so at the co-op, we do cultural cuisine classes. We love partnering with the Land Connection. So we will be doing an upcoming 6-part series, or maybe a 5-part series with the Land Connection this summer and going into the fall, all about how to use different herbs. So I'll put that in the chat on so you can get some more information on that. But if you're interested in cooking, we have different cultural cuisine classes every month that we offer, both in person. We also do cocktail classes. They usually sell out really quickly. And then additionally, we do virtual cooking classes with a meal kit component taught by community members. And this June 10th, we're going to be doing a cheese making class. You'll be able to learn how to make homemade mozzarella and creme fraiche using local Kilgis farmstead milk, butter, and buttermilk and cream. And all the proceeds go to Jubilee Cafe, which they're a wonderful champagne soup kitchen. And the kitchen manager is going to be teaching how to make this homemade mozzarella and creme fraiche. So I'll put the link in there as well. And you can keep tabs on all of our classes with the Land Connection and through and the ones that we're doing just through cultural cuisine classes with our email list. So we'll make sure that we can sign you up if you're interested for that. And yeah, we will. There's some questions coming down in the comments saying we will also be sending the recording and the PowerPoint to you guys this weekend so you can watch it again and look through any notes. But yeah, we're just so glad that you all came. So thank you again so much. Pass it back to Kelly.
All right. And if you're looking for more information and resources related to locally grown fruits, vegetables, herbs, and more, I do encourage you to check out the Land Connections local foods page or our recipe page. We have all sorts of fun stuff happening there. And we hope to see you in the future. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to us. We're always happy to answer questions about a whole wide range of things, or you can visit us at the downtown Champaign Farmers Market on Tuesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. All right, have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for coming today.